What this humble woman did after being treated like trash in a luxury hospital left doctors, nurses, and patients completely shocked. What nobody knew about her changed forever the lives of everyone in that place. A story that will restore your faith in humanity and show you why we should never judge by appearances. Before we start this incredible story, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and at the end, don't forget to rate our story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. It was 7:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning when 68-year-old Conceição Santos gently shook her 12-year-old granddaughter Sofia awake. The little girl had been running a high fever all night, and her grandmother's worried face showed the sleepless hours she had spent watching over her. "Sofia, sweetheart," Conceição whispered softly, her weathered hands touching the child's burning forehead. "We need to go to the hospital. Your fever isn't going down." Sofia opened her tired eyes and looked at her grandmother. Despite feeling terrible, she managed a weak smile. "Grandma, you look worried. I'm going to be okay." Conceição smiled back, but inside her heart was heavy with concern. Sofia was not just her granddaughter, she was her whole world. After Sofia's parents died in a car accident 3 years ago, Conceição had become the little girl's guardian, protector, and best friend. "I know you will be my angel," Conceição said, helping Sofia sit up in bed. "But let's have a doctor check you to make sure everything is fine." As Sofia slowly got dressed, Conceição looked at herself in the mirror. She was wearing her usual outfit, a simple blue dress that had seen better days, comfortable old sneakers, and a worn cardigan that had been her favorite for years. Her grey hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she carried an old leather purse that had been with her for over a decade. To anyone looking at her, Conceição Santos appeared to be exactly what many assumed she was. A humble woman of modest means, probably a domestic worker or someone who cleaned offices for a living, and that's exactly how she preferred it. "Grandma," Sofia said as they prepared to leave, "should we call Uncle Carlos to drive us?" Conceição shook her head. "No, sweetheart. We'll take the bus. Uncle Carlos is working and this isn't an emergency." What Sofia didn't know was that her grandmother could have called any of the 3 luxury cars parked in a private garage across town. She could have called a private ambulance or even a helicopter if needed. But Conceição Santos had learned long ago that sometimes the most important lessons in life come from the simplest moments. The bus ride to St. Mary's Memorial Hospital took 25 minutes. Sofia rested her head on her grandmother's shoulder while Conceição stroked her hair gently. Other passengers on the bus glanced at them with sympathy. A poor grandmother taking her sick granddaughter to the hospital, probably worried about how she would pay for the medical bills. If only they knew the truth. St. Mary's Memorial Hospital was the most prestigious medical facility in the city. Its gleaming marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and state-of-the-art equipment made it the preferred choice for celebrities, politicians, and the wealthy elite. The emergency room was always busy, but it had a clear hierarchy. VIP patients were seen immediately. Wealthy patients waited in comfortable private rooms, and everyone else waited. As Conceição and Sofia entered through the main entrance, the little girl couldn't help but stare in wonder at the magnificent lobby. Everything was so clean, so bright, so different from the small community clinic they usually visited for regular checkups. "Wow, Grandma," Sofia whispered. "This place is like a palace." Conceição squeezed her granddaughter's hand. "Yes, it is beautiful. But remember, sweetheart, beautiful buildings don't always mean beautiful hearts." They approached the reception desk where a young woman named Ashley was typing on her computer. Ashley was 24 years old, fresh out of college, and had been working at the hospital for only 6 months. She prided herself on being able to quickly assess patients and their ability to pay. When she looked up and saw Conceição and Sofia, Her expression immediately changed from professional courtesy to barely concealed annoyance. "Yes," Ashley said curtly, not even looking up from her screen. "What do you need?" "Good morning," Conceição said politely. "My granddaughter has had a high fever all night. I'd like a doctor to examine her, please." Ashley finally looked at them properly, taking in Conceição's simple clothes, worn shoes, and old purse. She glanced at Sofia, who, despite being obviously ill, was clean and well cared for, but also dressed simply. "Do you have insurance?" Ashley asked with a sigh, as if she already knew the answer would complicate her morning. "Yes, we do," Conceição replied calmly, reaching into her purse. "What kind of insurance?" Ashley pressed, her tone becoming more condescending. "Medicaid? State insurance? Because if it's state insurance, you'll need to go to the county hospital. We don't accept all types of coverage here." Sofia looked up at her grandmother, sensing the tension, but not understanding why the lady was being so rude. Conceição remained calm, though something flickered in her eyes. "I have private insurance," Conceição said quietly. "The best available." Ashley rolled her eyes. "Ma'am, with all due respect, private insurance costs thousands of dollars a month. Are you sure you don't mean state-assisted insurance? Because I can direct you to the right facility." "I said I have private insurance," Conceição repeated, her voice still calm, but with a firmness that made Sofia look up at her grandmother with curiosity. Ashley reluctantly took the insurance card that Conceição handed her. As she scanned it into the computer, her eyebrows raised slightly. The insurance was indeed legitimate and comprehensive, but Ashley was not easily impressed. "Fine," she said, handing back the card. "Fill out these forms and take a seat over there." She pointed to a section of hard plastic chairs in the corner, far from the comfortable seating area near the windows. "It'll be a while. We're very busy today." As they walked to the indicated area, Sofia tugged on her grandmother's sleeve. "Grandma, why was she so mean to us?" Conceição sat down and pulled Sofia close to her. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people judge others by how they look on the outside instead of getting to know their hearts. It's not right, but it happens." "But why?" Sofia persisted. "We didn't do anything wrong." "No, we didn't," Conceição agreed, "and that's a lesson you must never forget. How you treat people says more about who you are than about who they are." 2 hours passed. Sofia's fever seemed to be getting worse, and she was becoming increasingly lethargic. Conceição watched as other patients who had arrived after them were called back to see doctors. She noticed the pattern. Well-dressed patients with expensive handbags and jewelry were seen quickly, while those who appeared to be of modest means waited longer. Finally, Conceição approached the reception desk again. "Excuse me," she said politely to Ashley. "My granddaughter has been waiting for 2 hours, and her fever is getting worse. Could you please check on our status?" Ashley looked up with obvious irritation. "Ma'am, I told you it would be a while. Emergency cases are seen first, then other patients according to priority. Just because you're impatient doesn't mean you can jump the line." "I understand that emergency cases come first," Conceição replied calmly. "But my granddaughter is a child with a high fever. Surely that constitutes some level of urgency." "Look," Ashley said, her voice becoming louder and attracting attention from other people in the waiting room. "This is a prestigious hospital. If you can't afford to wait for quality care, maybe you should try the county hospital. They're used to dealing with your type of situation." The waiting room fell silent. The patients were now staring at the exchange, some looking embarrassed for Conceição, others nodding in agreement with Ashley's assessment. Sofia looked up at her grandmother with wide eyes. She was only 12, but she was smart enough to understand that they were being treated badly because of how they looked. She saw the hurt flash across her grandmother's face for just a moment before Conceição regained her composure. "Grandma," Sofia whispered, "maybe we should go somewhere else." Conceição looked down at her granddaughter's flushed face and made a decision. "No, sweetheart, we're staying. Sometimes the right thing to do isn't the easy thing to do." Just then, a woman in scrubs approached them. Nurse Patricia Williams was 45 years old and had been working at St. Mary's for 15 years. She had witnessed the exchange at the reception desk and decided to intervene, but not in the way one might hope. "Excuse me," Patricia said to Conceição, her tone professional but cold. "I'm Nurse Williams. I understand you're concerned about the wait time." "Yes," Conceição replied. "My granddaughter has had a high fever all night, and we've been waiting for over 2 hours." Patricia looked at Sofia, then back at Conceição. "Ma'am, I can see that your granddaughter is ill, but you need to understand that this hospital operates on a priority system. We have very important patients here, business leaders, celebrities, people who contribute significantly to our hospital's research and development." She paused, letting her words sink in. "These people don't just receive care here. They make it possible for us to provide care to everyone else. So yes, they are seen first. It's not personal, it's just how things work in the real world." Sofia squeezed her grandmother's hand tighter. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. How could they treat her grandmother this way? Her grandmother, who was the kindest, smartest, most wonderful person in the world. "I understand your system," Conceição said quietly. "But my granddaughter is a child, and she's been sick all night. Surely compassion should be part of your priority system as well." Patricia's expression hardened. "Ma'am, if you're not satisfied with our service, you're free to leave. No one is forcing you to stay here. But if you choose to stay, you'll need to wait your turn like everyone else." An elderly man sitting nearby cleared his throat. "Nurse, the lady has a point. The child does look quite ill." Patricia turned to the man with a smile. "Mr. Henderson, how lovely to see you again. Don't worry about this situation. We'll have you taken back to see Dr. Morrison right away." Mr. Henderson had arrived 30 minutes after Conceição and Sofia, but he was wearing an expensive suit and a Rolex watch. Patricia personally escorted him to the back, leaving Conceição and Sofia sitting in the plastic chairs. Sofia looked up at her grandmother, tears starting to form in her eyes. "Grandma, I don't understand. Why are they being so mean to us? Don't they want to help sick people?" Conceição pulled Sofia closer, her heart breaking not from the treatment they were receiving, but from watching her granddaughter learn such a harsh lesson about the world. "They do want to help, sweetheart. But sometimes people forget that everyone deserves kindness and respect, regardless of how much money they have or what clothes they wear." "But you always taught me to be kind to everyone," Sofia said. "You always help people, even when they can't help you back." "That's right, my angel, and that's how we should always be, no matter how others treat us." Sofia was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she looked up at her grandmother with eyes that seemed older than her 12 years. "Grandma, maybe it's time to show them who you really are." Conceição looked at her granddaughter with surprise. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Sofia lowered her voice to a whisper. "You always tell me that being humble is important, and I love that about you. But sometimes people need to learn that they shouldn't judge others. Maybe this is one of those times." For the first time since they had arrived at the hospital, Conceição smiled genuinely. Her granddaughter's wisdom never ceased to amaze her. The child was right. Sometimes allowing people to treat you badly doesn't teach them humility. It enables their cruelty. "You know what, Sofia?" Conceição said, reaching into her purse. "You're absolutely right. Some lessons are more important than others." Conceição pulled out her cell phone, not the old flip phone most people expected her to have, but a latest model smartphone. She scrolled through her contacts and found the number she was looking for. "Hello, James," she said when the call connected. "It's Conceição. I'm at St. Mary's Hospital with Sophia, and I need Dr. Elizabeth Morrison to see her immediately." There was a pause as the person on the other end responded. "Yes, I know it's short notice," Conceição continued. "But Sofia has been running a high fever all night, and we've been waiting for over 2 hours, while other patients who arrived after us have been seen. I think it's time the staff here understands that every patient deserves respect." Another pause. "Thank you, James. We'll be waiting." Sofia watched her grandmother with growing curiosity. There was something different about the way her grandmother had spoken on the phone, more authoritative, more confident. It reminded Sofia of the voice her grandmother used when she was on important business calls at home, the ones she thought Sofia didn't notice. "Grandma," Sofia whispered, "who did you just call?" Conceição winked at her granddaughter. "Someone who understands that good medical care should be available to everyone, regardless of appearances." 10 minutes later, the atmosphere in the waiting room began to change. The first sign was James Rodriguez, the hospital administrator, rushing through the lobby with an expression of barely controlled panic. He went straight to the reception desk and had an urgent, whispered conversation with Ashley. Sofia watched as Ashley's face went pale and her eyes darted around the waiting room as if she was looking for someone. Then James Rodriguez began walking through the seating area, clearly searching for specific people. When his eyes landed on Conceição and Sofia, he immediately approached them with a smile that was both apologetic and nervous. "Mrs. Santos," he said, extending his hand, "I'm James Rodriguez, the hospital administrator. I'm so sorry for the delay in your granddaughter's care. Dr. Morrison is ready to see you immediately." The entire waiting room fell silent. Every eye was on the simply dressed woman and the sick little girl who had somehow jumped to the front of the line with just one phone call. Ashley, the receptionist, stared in shock. Patricia, the nurse, had just returned from escorting Mr. Henderson and stood frozen as she watched the hospital administrator personally escort the woman she had been dismissing all morning. "Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez," Conceição said graciously, standing and helping Sofia to her feet. "I appreciate Dr. Morrison making time for us." As they walked toward the elevator, Sofia tugged on her grandmother's sleeve. "Grandma, how do you know the doctor? And how did one phone call change everything?" Conceição smiled down at her granddaughter. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people are not what they appear to be, and sometimes the people you least expect turn out to be the most important." Dr. Elizabeth Morrison was waiting for them in her office, the largest, most luxurious medical office in the hospital. Sofia had never seen anything like it. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, elegant furniture, diplomas and awards covering one entire wall, and fresh flowers on a mahogany desk that looked like it belonged in a palace. "Conceição!" Dr. Morrison exclaimed, standing up and embracing Conceição warmly. "It's so wonderful to see you, though I wish it were under better circumstances. And this must be Sofia." Sofia looked back and forth between her grandmother and the doctor, confusion written all over her face. Dr. Morrison was clearly an important person. Her office, her manner, everything about her spoke of success and prestige. How did her humble grandmother know such an important doctor so well? "Hello, Dr. Morrison," Conceição said with genuine warmth. "Thank you for seeing us on such short notice. Sofia has been running a fever all night, and I wanted to make sure everything is okay." "Of course," Dr. Morrison said, kneeling down to Sofia's level. "Hello, sweetheart. I'm Dr. Morrison. Your grandmother has told me so much about you. She says you're incredibly smart and kind, just like her." Sofia managed a weak smile despite her fever. "You know my grandmother?" Dr. Morrison glanced at Conceição, who nodded slightly. "Oh yes, I know your grandmother very well. She's one of the most remarkable women I've ever met. As Dr. Morrison began examining Sofia, checking her temperature, listening to her heart, looking at her throat. She chatted with both of them in a way that was completely different from how they had been treated downstairs. "Sofia," Dr. Morrison said as she worked, "did you know that your grandmother is one of the reasons this hospital exists?" Sofia's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Dr. Morrison smiled at Conceição. "Should I tell her, or would you like to?" Conceição shook her head. "Let's focus on Sofia's health first. The other things can wait." But Sofia was too curious now. Despite feeling sick, her mind was racing with questions. "Grandma, what does Dr. Morrison mean? How are you one of the reasons this hospital exists?" Before Conceição could answer, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," Dr. Morrison called. James Rodriguez entered, followed by a man Sofia didn't recognize. He was tall, well-dressed, and carried himself with the air of someone very important. "Conceição," the man said, approaching her with obvious respect. "I came as soon as James called me. How is Sofia?" "She's going to be fine," Dr. Morrison interjected. "It appears to be a viral infection. Nothing serious, but she'll need rest and fluids." The man smiled with relief. "Thank God. Conceição, you know that if you ever need anything at all, you just have to call." Sofia was staring at this interaction with growing amazement. First, the hospital administrator had rushed to help them. Then, this important doctor, who clearly knew her grandmother well, and now another important-looking man, was talking to her grandmother with obvious respect and concern. "Thank you, Michael," Conceição said to the man. "I appreciate your concern, but I think there's something more important we need to discuss." Her voice took on a different tone, still kind but with an authority that Sofia had never heard before. "The treatment Sofia and I received downstairs was completely unacceptable." Michael's expression immediately became serious. "What happened?" James Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. He had heard reports from staff about the situation downstairs, but he had hoped to address it quietly, without involving Michael. "We waited for over 2 hours," Conceição continued, "while patients who arrived after us were seen immediately. We were treated rudely by the reception staff and told that perhaps we should go to the county hospital because this facility was for people who could afford quality care." Michael's face darkened. "Who said this to you?" "A receptionist named Ashley and a nurse named Patricia Williams." Sofia watched as Michael's jaw tightened. "James, please have both Ashley and Nurse Williams come to Dr. Morrison's office immediately." "Michael," Conceição said gently, "I don't want anyone to lose their jobs, but I do think this is an important teaching moment." Sofia was completely lost now. Who was this Michael person, and why did he have the authority to summon hospital staff? How did her grandmother know all these important people, and why were they all treating her grandmother with such obvious respect and deference? Within 5 minutes, Ashley and Patricia Williams were standing in Dr. Morrison's office, both looking nervous and confused. They recognized James Rodriguez and Dr. Morrison, but they didn't know who the other man was. And they certainly didn't understand why they had been summoned to discuss the woman in the simple dress who was still sitting with her granddaughter. "Ashley, Patricia," James Rodriguez began. "This is Michael Harrison, the chairman of our hospital board." Both women straightened up immediately. The chairman of the board was essentially the most powerful person in the hospital, more powerful than any doctor, any administrator, anyone. "Mr. Harrison," Patricia said nervously, "it's an honor to meet you." Michael didn't return their pleasantries. Instead, he gestured toward Conceição. "I understand that you two had some interactions with Mrs. Santos and her granddaughter this morning. Would you like to tell me about those interactions?" Ashley and Patricia exchanged confused glances. They still didn't understand why a woman who appeared to be of modest means was sitting in the chairman's presence, or why her treatment was of concern to the highest levels of hospital administration. "Well," Ashley began hesitantly, "the woman came in with her granddaughter, and I processed their paperwork. I explained our procedures." "What specifically did you explain?" Michael asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Ashley was beginning to sense that she was in trouble, but she still didn't understand why. "I explained that we see patients based on priority, and that if they couldn't afford to wait for quality care, perhaps the county hospital would be more appropriate for their situation." The silence in the room was deafening. Dr. Morrison closed her eyes in dismay. James Rodriguez looked like he wanted to disappear. Michael Harrison's expression was one of barely controlled anger. "And you, Nurse Williams," Michael asked, "what was your interaction with Mrs. Santos?" Patricia, now realizing that something was very wrong but still not understanding what, decided to defend her actions. "Mr. Harrison, I simply explained our priority system. We have very important patients here, business leaders, people who contribute significantly to the hospital. These people make it possible for us to provide care to everyone else. I was just being honest about how things work in the real world." Sofia watched her grandmother's face carefully. She expected to see anger or hurt, but instead she saw something else. Disappointment, perhaps, but also a kind of sadness. Michael Harrison stood up slowly. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but there was an underlying fury that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. "Ashley, Patricia, I'd like you to meet Mrs. Conceição Santos," he said, gesturing toward her. "Mrs. Santos is the primary benefactor of this hospital. The Santos Foundation has donated over $50 million to this facility over the past 15 years. Ashley's face went white. Patricia's mouth fell open. Michael continued. "The new children's wing that opened last year, that was built entirely with Mrs. Santos's money. The state-of-the-art cancer treatment center, Mrs. Santos funded that too. The free clinic that provides health care to low-income families, that exists because of Mrs. Santos's generosity." Sofia stared at her grandmother in shock. $50 million. Her grandmother had given $50 million to this hospital. "The emergency room where you work, Ashley," Michael went on, "was renovated with equipment purchased through Mrs. Santos's donations. The salary you earn, Patricia, is partially possible because of the endowment Mrs. Santos established to ensure this hospital could hire the best medical professionals." Both women looked like they might faint. They had spent the morning treating their hospital's greatest benefactor like she was an unwelcome burden. But Michael wasn't finished. "Mrs. Santos has never asked for special treatment. She has never requested VIP status or demanded recognition for her generosity. She has given millions of dollars to ensure that everyone, regardless of their economic status, could receive excellent medical care at this hospital." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And this morning, you treated her exactly like what she has spent years fighting against. A system where healthcare quality depends on appearances and assumptions rather than medical need." Sofia looked at her grandmother, her mind reeling. Everything was starting to make sense now. The business calls she overheard at home, the important-looking mail that arrived daily, the way her grandmother always seemed to know exactly what to do in any situation. "Grandma," Sofia whispered, Are you really rich?" Conceição smiled at her granddaughter and took her hand. "Yes, sweetheart, I am. But being rich isn't about money. It's about how you choose to use whatever you have to help others." Ashley found her voice first. "Mrs. Santos, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I was completely wrong to treat you that way." Patricia was crying now. "Ma'am, I am so ashamed. I can't believe I said those things to you. You've done so much for this hospital, for all of us, and I treated you terribly." Conceição stood up and walked over to both women. To everyone's surprise, her expression was kind, not angry. "Ashley, Patricia," she said gently, "I'm not angry with you, but I am disappointed, not because of how you treated me. I can handle that. I'm disappointed because of what your behavior says about how you treat other patients who don't appear to be wealthy or important." She paused, making sure they were listening carefully. "The elderly man who comes in with Medicaid insurance, does he receive the same quality of care as someone with expensive private insurance? The single mother who brings her child in wearing clothes from a thrift store, is she made to feel welcome, or is she made to feel like a burden?" Both women looked down, unable to meet her eyes. "This hospital exists to serve everyone," Conceição continued. "Every person who walks through those doors deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance, their economic status, or their ability to pay. That's why I support this hospital. Not so that wealthy people can receive better treatment, but so that everyone can receive excellent treatment." Sofia felt a surge of pride in her grandmother. Even in this moment, when she could have humiliated the people who had treated them badly, her grandmother was choosing to teach instead of punish. Dr. Morrison spoke up. "Mrs. Santos is absolutely right. Ashley, Patricia, you'll both be attending mandatory sensitivity training, and your supervisors will be conducting regular reviews of how you interact with all patients, not just the ones you perceive as important." Michael Harrison nodded. "Additionally, I want both of you to spend a day volunteering in the free clinic that Mrs. Santos funded. I want you to see firsthand the kind of patients this hospital was created to serve." "Yes, sir," both women said quietly. James Rodriguez cleared his throat. "Mrs. Santos, on behalf of the entire hospital administration, I apologize for this morning's events. We will be reviewing our training procedures to ensure this never happens again." Conceição smiled. "James, I appreciate that. But I want you to understand, I didn't reveal who I was to embarrass anyone or to receive special treatment. I did it because Sofia asked me an important question." She looked down at her granddaughter. "She asked me why people were being mean to us when we hadn't done anything wrong, and I realized that sometimes the best way to teach people about kindness and respect is to show them the consequences of their assumptions." Sofia squeezed her grandmother's hand. "Grandma, I'm proud of you. Not because you have money, but because you use it to help people." Conceição's eyes filled with tears. "And I'm proud of you, sweetheart, for always seeing the best in people, even when they don't show you their best." After Ashley and Patricia left Dr. Morrison's office, Sofia was given medication for her fever and instructions for recovery. But her mind was no longer on being sick. She was fascinated by what she had learned about her grandmother. As they prepared to leave, Sofia had 1,000 questions. "Grandma, how did you get so much money? And why do you dress like we don't have very much?" Conceição sat down next to her granddaughter. "Sofia, that's a long story, but I think you're old enough to hear it." Dr. Morrison and Michael Harrison settled in to listen as well. They knew parts of Conceição's story, but not all of it. 50 years ago, Conceição began, I was a young woman working as a cleaning lady in office buildings downtown. I worked nights so I could go to school during the day. I was studying business, but I was also learning something more important. I was learning how differently people treated me when they thought I was just a cleaning lady. Sofia listened intently. What do you mean? Well, when I was cleaning offices late at night, I would overhear business meetings, phone calls, important conversations. The business people never noticed me. I was invisible to them. They would discuss stock deals, real estate investments, company mergers, all while I was emptying their trash cans and dusting their desks. Conceição smiled at the memory. They assumed that because I was cleaning bathrooms, I couldn't possibly understand their sophisticated business discussions. But I was getting a free education in finance and investments. Michael Harrison chuckled. And you were taking notes, weren't you? Mental notes, Conceição confirmed. I couldn't afford to invest much money at first, but I started small. I bought a few shares of stock in companies I had heard executives discussing. I invested in real estate deals that I had overheard in meetings. And it worked, Sofia asked, amazed. Better than I ever dreamed, Conceição said. Over the years, those small investments grew. I reinvested the profits, always being careful, always learning. By the time I was 40, I had accumulated significant wealth. Dr. Morrison leaned forward. But you never stopped dressing simply, did you? Conceição shook her head. No, and there's an important reason for that. When I first became wealthy, I tried dressing expensively, driving luxury cars, living in an obvious way. But I discovered something troubling. What? Sofia asked. I discovered that when people knew I was wealthy, they treated me completely differently. Suddenly, everyone was my friend. Everyone had investment opportunities for me, charity requests, business proposals. But more importantly, I noticed that when I looked wealthy, people would ignore others who looked poor. Sofia frowned. I don't understand. For example, Conceição explained, if I went to a restaurant dressed expensively, the staff would fawn over me while ignoring other customers who appeared to be of modest means. If I went shopping in expensive clothes, salespeople would help me immediately while making others wait. That's not fair, Sofia said. No, it's not, Conceição agreed. So I made a decision. I would continue to dress simply and live modestly, not because I couldn't afford better, but because it allowed me to see how people really behaved when they thought no one important was watching. Michael Harrison nodded approvingly. And that's when you started your philanthropic work. Exactly, Conceição said. I realized that my wealth gave me an opportunity to help people. But more than that, it gave me the ability to change systems that treated people unfairly. She turned to Sofia. Every hospital, school and charity I support, I visit first as a regular person. I see how they treat ordinary patients, students and people seeking help. Only then do I decide whether they deserve support. Sofia's eyes widened with understanding. So this morning wasn't the first time you've tested how people behave. Oh no, sweetheart. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've visited dozens of hospitals, hundreds of schools, countless businesses and charities. I've seen the best and worst of human behavior. Dr. Morrison smiled. Your grandmother has a very effective method. She finds organizations that truly serve everyone equally, and then she helps them do even more good work. But she also identifies problems, Michael Harrison added. When she finds discrimination or unfair treatment, she works to fix it. Conceição nodded. That's why I support this hospital, Sofia. Not because they give special treatment to wealthy people, but because their mission is to provide excellent care to everyone. Dr. Morrison and Mr. Harrison genuinely believe that healthcare is a right, not a privilege. Sofia thought about this for a moment. But Grandma, what about Ashley and Patricia? Will they really change? I hope so, Conceição said. Most people aren't truly bad. They just haven't thought carefully about how their behavior affects others. Sometimes all it takes is opening their eyes to make them want to be better. As they prepared to leave the hospital, Sofia had one more question. Grandma, will you teach me how to invest money and help people like you do? Conceição hugged her granddaughter tightly. Of course, my angel, but remember, the most important investment you can make is in kindness. Money can disappear, but the good you do for others lasts forever. 3 weeks later, Sofia was fully recovered and back in school. But the events at the hospital had changed both her and her grandmother in unexpected ways. One afternoon, Sofia came home with exciting news. "Grandma, you'll never guess what happened at school today." Conceição looked up from the financial report she was reviewing. "Tell me, sweetheart. Remember how you always told me to be kind to everyone, even the kids who aren't popular or who don't have nice clothes?" "Of course." Sofia sat down next to her grandmother, her eyes bright with excitement. "Well, there's a girl in my class named Maria. She's from El Salvador, and her family doesn't have much money. Some of the other kids have been mean to her because her English isn't perfect, and because she wears the same clothes a lot." Conceição felt a familiar stirring in her heart. "And today Maria looked really sad, so I sat with her at lunch. I found out that her mother has been sick and they can't afford to take her to the doctor. Maria was scared her mom might die." Sofia paused, looking at her grandmother with eyes that reminded Conceição so much of herself at that age. "Grandma, I remembered what you did at the hospital. I remembered how you help people who are being treated unfairly." "What did you do?" Conceição asked, though she thought she might already know. "I told Maria about our experience at the hospital. I told her about Dr. Morrison and how good she is, and then I asked if maybe we could help her mother." Conceição smiled proudly. "Sofia, that was very thoughtful of you. Did you have a particular kind of help in mind?" Sofia bit her lip nervously. "Well, I know we have good insurance, and I know Dr. Morrison would see Maria's mother if you asked her to. And I was thinking, maybe Maria's mother could get the help she needs without having to worry about money." That evening, Conceição made 2 phone calls. The first was to Dr. Morrison, arranging for Maria's mother to receive a full medical examination and any necessary treatment at no cost. The second was to James Rodriguez, asking him to ensure that Maria's family would be treated with the utmost respect and care from the moment they arrived at the hospital. But Conceição had an even better idea. "Sofia," she said after making the calls, "how would you like to accompany Maria and her mother to the hospital? I think it would mean a lot to Maria to have a friend with her." Sofia's face lit up. "Really? You'd let me do that? I think it's important for you to see how your kindness can make a real difference in someone's life." The next day, Conceição, Sofia and Maria's family arrived at St. Mary's Memorial Hospital. This time, however, the experience was completely different from their previous visit. Ashley, the receptionist who had been so rude 3 weeks earlier, was the first to greet them. When she saw Conceição, her face immediately showed recognition and remorse. "Mrs. Santos," Ashley said, standing up quickly, "welcome back to St. Mary's. How may I help you today?" "Hello, Ashley," Conceição said warmly. "I'm here with the Rodriguez family. Maria's mother, Carmen, has an appointment with Dr. Morrison." Ashley's demeanor was completely transformed. She spoke gently to Carmen Rodriguez in Spanish, explaining the procedures and making sure she felt comfortable. She personally escorted the family to a comfortable waiting area and ensured they had everything they needed. Sofia watched this interaction with fascination. "Grandma," she whispered, "Ashley is so different now." "People can change, sweetheart," Conceição replied. "Sometimes they just need the right motivation." When Nurse Patricia Williams came to escort Carmen to her examination, she too was a changed person. She greeted the Rodriguez family with genuine warmth and made sure that Maria felt included and informed about her mother's care. "Mrs. Santos," Patricia said quietly before taking Carmen back to see the doctor, "I want you to know that your lesson 3 weeks ago has stayed with me every day. I've been treating every patient the way I wish my own mother would be treated in a hospital." Conceição smiled. "I'm glad to hear that, Patricia. That's all any of us can ask for." While Carmen was being examined, Conceição, Sofia and Maria sat in the family waiting area. Maria was nervous about her mother, but Sofia held her hand and told her stories to help her relax. "Mrs. Santos," Maria said suddenly, "Sofia told me that you help people. Is that really true?" Conceição looked at the young girl, 12 years old, just like Sofia, but carrying worries that no child should have to bear. "Yes, Maria, it's true. I help people when I can." "Why?" Maria asked. "I mean, Sofia says you're very rich. Rich people don't usually care about people like us." The question pierced Conceição's heart, not because it was rude, but because it revealed how early children learn to expect indifference from those who had the power to help. "Maria," Conceição said gently, "being rich doesn't make someone good or bad. Having money is just a tool, like a hammer or a paintbrush. What matters is how you choose to use that tool." Sofia nodded enthusiastically. "My grandma uses her money like a magic wand. She makes good things happen for people." Maria smiled for the first time that day. "That's a nice way to think about it." An hour later, Dr. Morrison emerged with excellent news. Carmen Rodriguez had a treatable condition that would require medication and some follow-up care, but she would be fine. More importantly, Dr. Morrison had arranged for all of Carmen's medical care to be covered by the hospital's charity care program. As they prepared to leave, Carmen Rodriguez approached Conceição with tears in her eyes. In her limited English, she managed to say, "Thank you, Mrs. Santos. You are an angel from God." Conceição hugged the grateful mother. "Carmen, you would do the same for someone else if you could. We help each other. That's what families do." "But we're not family," Maria said, confused. "Aren't we?" Conceição asked. "Sofia cares about you, which means I care about you. Your mother's health matters to us. That makes us family in the ways that truly count." Word of Conceição's quiet generosity began to spread through Sofia's school and their community. But what impressed people most wasn't her wealth, it was her wisdom and kindness. A month after helping Maria's family, Sofia came home with another story. "Grandma, something amazing happened today at school." Conceição was in her home office, reviewing applications for the Santos Foundation Scholarship Program. "Tell me about it, sweetheart. You know how you always say that kindness spreads like ripples in a pond?" "Yes." Sofia sat down excitedly. "Well, today at lunch, I saw some 8th grade boys picking on a 6th grader named Tommy. They were making fun of his clothes and calling him names." Conceição felt a familiar surge of protective anger. "What did you do?" "Well, first I was scared because the 8th graders are so much bigger than me. But then I remembered what you did at the hospital. How you stayed calm and found a way to teach people instead of just getting angry." "Go on," Conceição encouraged. "So I walked over to them and said, 'Hi, I'm Sofia. What's your name?' to the boy they were picking on. And then I started talking to him about his favorite video game, completely ignoring the bullies." Conceição smiled. "That was very smart. But here's the amazing part, Grandma. Maria saw what I was doing, and she came over too. Then 2 other kids from our class joined us. Pretty soon, Tommy was surrounded by friends instead of bullies, and the 8th graders just walked away. And then," Sofia's eyes were shining with excitement, "then Tommy told us that his family just moved here from another state, and he was feeling really lonely. So Maria invited him to sit with us every day at lunch, and now he has a whole group of friends." Conceição hugged her granddaughter. "Sofia, I am so proud of you. You learned the most important lesson of all, that kindness is contagious." "But Grandma, there's more." Tommy's mum called Maria's mum to thank her for Maria being so nice to Tommy, and during their conversation, Tommy's mum mentioned that she's a nurse and she's been looking for work. Conceição raised her eyebrows, already sensing where this story was going. So Maria's mum told Tommy's mum about how wonderful all the nurses are at St. Mary's Hospital and how they're always looking for good people. And guess what? Tommy's mum got a job at the hospital. Yes, and when she went for her interview, Nurse Patricia was one of the people who interviewed her. Patricia told her about how the hospital is working to make sure every patient feels welcome and respected, regardless of their background. Conceição was amazed. So Tommy's mother is going to be part of making the hospital even better? Exactly. And Tommy told me that his mom is so excited because she's always wanted to work somewhere that really cares about helping people. That evening, Conceição received a phone call from Dr. Morrison. Conceição, I wanted to tell you about our newest nurse. Her name is Jennifer Thompson, and she's absolutely wonderful. During her interview, she talked about how her son had made friends with some remarkable children who taught him about kindness and inclusion. That would be Sofia and her friends, Conceição said with pride. I thought so. But here's what's interesting. Jennifer said that her son's experience showed her how important it is to create environments where everyone feels valued and included. She specifically asked to work in our emergency department because she wants to ensure that every patient feels cared for from the moment they arrive. Conceição smiled. It sounds like she'll be a perfect fit. There's more, Dr. Morrison continued. Jennifer's hiring has inspired our entire nursing staff. Patricia Williams has become something of a mentor to her, sharing what she learned from your visit. They're developing new protocols to ensure respectful treatment for all patients. After hanging up, Conceição found Sofia in her room working on homework. Sofia, Dr. Morrison just called with wonderful news about Tommy's mother. Sofia looked up eagerly. Really? She's going to help make the hospital an even better place for everyone, and it all started because you chose to be kind to a lonely boy at lunch. Sofia beamed with pride. Do you think Tommy knows that his mom got the job partly because of what happened at lunch? I don't think he needs to know all the details, Conceição said. The important thing is that kindness led to more kindness, which led to opportunities for good people to do good work. Sofia nodded thoughtfully. Grandma, I think I'm starting to understand what you mean about money being a tool. It's not just about buying things or helping people pay for things they need. What do you mean? Well, you could have just paid for Maria's mum's medical bills and Tommy's family's expenses, and that would have been nice. But instead you found ways to help them that also made the whole system better for other people too. Conceição looked at her granddaughter with amazement. At 12 years old, Sofia was grasping concepts that many adults never understood. You're absolutely right, sweetheart. The best kind of help doesn't just solve one problem. It creates opportunities for people to solve problems for themselves and others. 3 months after the hospital incident, Conceição and Sofia were settling into a comfortable routine of quiet philanthropy and important life lessons. But their peaceful life was about to be disrupted in an unexpected way. It started with a phone call on a Saturday morning. Sofia was in the kitchen making pancakes, a skill her grandmother had recently taught her, when Conceição's phone rang. Hello, this is Conceição Santos, she answered. Mrs. Santos, this is Detective Maria Gonzalez with the Metro Police Department. I'm calling about an incident that occurred yesterday at Central Elementary School. Conceição's heart immediately jumped to her throat. Is Sofia okay? She wasn't at school yesterday. It was a teacher planning day. Oh no, Mrs. Santos. Sofia is fine. I'm calling about a different matter. There was an incident involving a custodian at the school, and your name has come up in our investigation. Conceição relaxed slightly, but she was still confused. I'm not sure I understand. How would I be involved in a school incident? Ma'am, would it be possible for you to come down to the station? I'd prefer to discuss this in person. An hour later, Conceição and Sofia were sitting in Detective Gonzalez's office at the police station. Sofia was nervous. She had never been in a police station before. But Conceição was calm and curious. "Mrs. Santos," Detective Gonzalez began. "Yesterday afternoon, there was an incident at Central Elementary School involving a custodian named Robert Washington. Are you familiar with this person?" Conceição thought for a moment. "I don't believe so. Should I be?" "Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. Mr. Washington was found unconscious in the school basement. When paramedics arrived, they discovered that he had collapsed from exhaustion and malnutrition. He's been hospitalized, but he's going to be okay." Sofia gasped. "That's terrible. But how does this involve my grandmother?" Detective Gonzalez pulled out a notebook. "When we searched Mr. Washington's locker, we found something interesting." She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out an envelope. "This is addressed to Mrs. Conceição Santos, but it was never mailed." Conceição took the envelope with curiosity. Her name and address were written on the front in shaky handwriting, but there was no return address and no stamp. "Go ahead and open it," Detective Gonzalez encouraged. "We've already read it as part of our investigation, but we need to understand the connection." Conceição opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper covered in the same shaky handwriting. As she read, her expression changed from curiosity to shock to deep sadness. "Grandma, what does it say?" Sofia asked, noticing her grandmother's reaction. Conceição's voice was soft as she read aloud, "Dear Mrs. Santos, you don't know me, but I know about you. I am the night custodian at Central Elementary School, and I have heard the teachers talking about the wonderful things you do for children and families in need." She paused, her eyes filling with tears as she continued reading. "I am 67 years old, and I have been working 3 jobs to support my sick wife and my grandson, who lives with us since his parents died. But I am getting too old and tired to keep working so many hours." Sofia moved closer to her grandmother, sensing the importance of what they were hearing. Conceição continued, "I heard that you sometimes help people who are struggling, but only if they truly deserve help and are not just asking for handouts. I have been too proud to ask for help, but my wife's medical bills are getting worse, and I'm afraid I might collapse from exhaustion before I can earn enough to pay them." The letter went on, "I am not asking for money. I am asking for a chance. If you could help me find one better job instead of 3 part-time jobs, I would be forever grateful. I'm a hard worker, and I am honest. I just need an opportunity to work for someone who values those qualities." The letter was signed, "Respectfully, Robert Washington, Night Custodian, Central Elementary School." When Conceição finished reading, the office was silent for several moments. Finally, Detective Gonzalez spoke. "Mrs. Santos, do you know why Mr. Washington would write to you specifically?" Conceição was still processing what she had heard. "Detective, I support several programs at Central Elementary, but I don't usually have direct contact with staff members. How would he know about me?" "That's what we were hoping you could tell us." Sofia, who had been listening intently, suddenly raised her hand. Excuse me? I think I might know." Both women turned to look at her. "You do?" Conceição asked. "Well, remember a few weeks ago when I had to stay after school for the science fair meeting, and you came to pick me up?" Conceição nodded. "Yes, I remember. When we were walking out of the building, we passed the janitor's closet, and there was an older man inside. You said good evening to him, and he said good evening back. But then you stopped and asked him how he was doing." Conceição was starting to remember. "Oh yes, he looked very tired." "Right," Sofia continued. "And you asked him if he was feeling okay, and he said he was just tired from working his other jobs, and then you said something about how hard it must be to work so many hours." Detective Gonzalez leaned forward with interest. What else happened? Sophia looked at her grandmother. You told him that he seemed like a very dedicated person and that dedicated people deserve opportunities to succeed. You gave him your business card and told him that if he ever needed advice about finding better employment, he could call you. But he never called, Conceição said. No, Detective Gonzalez confirmed. According to his wife, he was too proud to ask for help, but apparently he had been writing and rewriting this letter for weeks, trying to find the right words to ask for help without seeming like he was begging. Conceição stood up suddenly. Detective, where is Mr. Washington now? Which hospital? He's at General Hospital, but Mrs. Santos, I need to see him, Conceição said firmly. Sofia, we're going to the hospital. Detective Gonzalez looked confused. Mrs. Santos, you don't even know this man. Conceição turned to face the detective, and Sofia saw that look in her grandmother's eyes that appeared whenever she was about to do something important. Detective Gonzalez, Conceição said, a hard-working man who has been supporting his sick wife and his orphaned grandson, collapsed from exhaustion because he was too proud to ask for help. He wrote me a letter asking not for money, but for an opportunity to work with dignity. How could I not help him? An hour later, Conceição, Sofia, and Detective Gonzalez were standing outside Robert Washington's hospital room. Through the window, they could see an elderly black man lying in bed, connected to IV fluids. Sitting beside him was a woman who appeared to be his wife, holding his hand, and a young boy about Sofia's age reading a book in the corner. That must be his wife and grandson, Detective Gonzalez said quietly. Conceição knocked gently on the door. Mr. Washington, my name is Conceição Santos. May I come in? The woman by the bedside looked up with surprise. You're Mrs. Santos, the one Robert wrote the letter to. Yes, I am. And this is my granddaughter, Sofia. Robert Washington struggled to sit up in bed. Mrs. Santos, I'm so embarrassed. I never meant for you to find out about the letter this way. I wasn't even sure I was going to mail it. Mr. Washington, Conceição said gently, approaching his bedside. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. A man who works 3 jobs to support his family is a man who deserves respect, not embarrassment. Sofia watched as her grandmother sat down next to Mr. Washington's bed. The young boy in the corner looked up from his book, and Sofia gave him a small wave. Mr. Washington, Conceição continued, I read your letter, and I want you to know something. You didn't ask for charity. You asked for an opportunity. There's a big difference, and it tells me everything I need to know about your character. Tears started forming in Robert Washington's eyes. Mrs. Santos, I've been working since I was 14 years old. I've never asked anyone for a handout, but I'm getting old, and these 3 jobs are killing me. His wife, who introduced herself as Dorothy Washington, spoke up. Mrs. Santos, Robert has been working 18 hours a day for 2 years now, ever since our medical bills started piling up. He comes home exhausted, eats dinner, sleeps for 4 hours, and then goes to his next job. Sofia felt her heart breaking for this family. The young boy in the corner reminded her of herself, a child watching his grandparents struggle and wishing he could help. Mr. Washington, Conceição said, tell me about your work experience. What kind of skills do you have? Despite his exhaustion, Robert Washington's eyes lit up with pride. Well, I've been a custodian for 20 years, but before that, I was a maintenance supervisor at a factory. I know electrical work, plumbing, carpentry, basic mechanics. I can fix almost anything. And you're working 3 jobs now? Yes, ma'am. I clean the elementary school at night. I do maintenance at an office building in the early morning, and I work at a grocery store on weekends. Conceição nodded thoughtfully. And none of these jobs offers health insurance or benefits? No, ma'am. They're all part-time positions. That's why I need 3 of them. Sofia watched as her grandmother got that look on her face that meant she was formulating a plan. Mr. Washington, how would you feel about working one full-time job with benefits instead of 3 part-time jobs without benefits? Robert Washington sat up straighter. Ma'am, that would be a dream come true. But who would hire a 67-year-old man when they could hire someone younger? Conceição smiled. Someone who values experience, dedication, and integrity over age. The next morning, Conceição made a series of phone calls while Sofia listened with growing excitement. Her grandmother was creating what she called a perfect circle of helping. The first call was to Michael Harrison, the chairman of the hospital board. Michael, I need to discuss a staffing opportunity with you. Are you familiar with the maintenance challenges St. Mary's has been having? Sofia could hear Michael's voice through the phone. Don't get me started, Conceição. We've been through 3 different maintenance companies this year. None of them understand the specialized equipment we have, and their workers don't seem to care about the quality of their work. What if I told you I know someone who has 20 years of custodial experience, extensive maintenance skills, and a work ethic that's so strong he's been working 3 jobs to support his family? I'd say that sounds too good to be true. His name is Robert Washington, and he's currently in your hospital recovering from exhaustion because he's been working 18 hours a day. Conceição explained Robert's situation to Michael, who listened with growing interest. When she finished, Michael was silent for a moment. Conceição, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm suggesting that St. Mary's Hospital hire Robert Washington as head of maintenance. Full-time position, full benefits, salary commensurate with his experience and the responsibility of maintaining a major medical facility. What about his age? He's 67. Most people are thinking about retirement, not starting new careers. Conceição's voice became firm. Michael, this hospital exists because of donations from people who believe in treating everyone with dignity and respect. That includes employees as well as patients. Robert Washington has more dedication and integrity in his little finger than most people half his age have in their whole bodies. Sofia listened as Michael agreed to interview Robert Washington as soon as he was released from the hospital. The second call was to Dr. Morrison. Elizabeth, I need to ask you about Dorothy Washington. She's the wife of the maintenance worker I mentioned to Michael. What about her? She's been caring for her husband, her grandson, and managing their household while dealing with her own medical issues. I'm wondering if she's been receiving proper medical care herself. Dr. Morrison sighed. Conceição, you know how often caregivers neglect their own health while taking care of everyone else. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that Dorothy Washington deserves a full medical evaluation and any treatment she needs. And I'm thinking that if she's healthier, she'll be better able to enjoy the improved life that her husband's new job will provide. The third call was to the principal of Central Elementary School. Mrs. Patterson, this is Conceição Santos. I understand you've had some challenges with your night custodial staff. Mrs. Santos, it's wonderful to hear from you. Yes, we've been having difficulties. Our regular custodian, Mr. Washington, collapsed yesterday and is in the hospital. We're struggling to find temporary coverage. What if I told you that Mr. Washington's grandson is a student who would benefit from an after-school tutoring program? Sofia listened as her grandmother explained her idea. Central Elementary would use some of the Santos Foundation funding to create a comprehensive after-school program that would provide tutoring, meals, and supervision for students whose parents worked evening jobs. The program would serve 20 students, Conceição explained, including Robert Washington's grandson. The children would receive help with homework, nutritious dinners, and safe supervision until their parents finished work. Mrs. Patterson was enthusiastic. Mrs. Santos, that would solve so many problems for our families. Many of our parents work multiple jobs or evening shifts, and they worry about their children being home alone. The fourth and final call was to James Rodriguez at the hospital. "James, I need you to arrange something for me. When Robert Washington comes for his interview with Michael, I want his wife and grandson to be given a complete tour of the hospital." "Of course. Any particular reason?" "I want them to see the children's wing that their husband and grandfather helped fund through his years of hard work and dedication. I want them to understand that every person who works at St. Mary's is part of something bigger than themselves." After finishing her calls, Conceição found Sofia waiting with barely contained excitement. "Grandma, that was amazing. You just created jobs and programs and help for a whole family." Conceição sat down next to her granddaughter. "Sofia, I want you to understand something important about what just happened." "What?" "I didn't create anything. The opportunities were already there. Michael needed a dedicated maintenance worker, doctor. Morrison had the ability to provide medical care. Central Elementary needed funding for an after-school program. All I did was connect people who needed help with people who could provide help." Sofia thought about this. "But how did you know all these connections existed?" "Because I've been paying attention for years. I know what challenges these organizations face, what resources they have available, and what kinds of people they're looking for. When you truly listen to people and understand their needs, you can often find ways to help multiple people at the same time." "Is that what you mean by a perfect circle of helping?" "Exactly. Robert gets a better job with benefits. Dorothy gets the medical care she needs. Their grandson gets tutoring and after-school care. The hospital gets a dedicated employee. The school gets a needed program. Everyone benefits." Sofia was quiet for a moment, processing everything she had learned. "Grandma, do you think Mr. Washington will get the job?" Conceição smiled. "Sofia, Michael Harrison has been looking for someone exactly like Robert Washington for months. He just didn't know it until now." 3 days later, Robert Washington was released from the hospital with strict instructions to rest and reduce his stress levels. He was also scheduled for an interview at St. Mary's Memorial Hospital that same afternoon. Conceição and Sofia picked up Robert, Dorothy, and their grandson Marcus to drive them to the hospital. Robert was nervous about the interview, but he was wearing his best suit and carrying himself with the dignity of a man who had worked hard his entire life. "Mr. Washington," Conceição said as they drove, "I want you to remember something during this interview. You're not asking for charity. You're offering your skills and experience to an organization that needs exactly what you have to offer." "Yes, ma'am," Robert replied. "But Mrs. Santos, I can't help but feel like this is all too good to be true." Sofia turned around from the front seat. "Mr. Washington, my grandmother always says that good things happen to good people, but sometimes it takes a while for the good things to catch up." Dorothy Washington smiled at Sofia. "Your granddaughter is very wise." "She gets it from her grandmother," Marcus Washington said quietly. It was the first time he had spoken during the drive, and Sofia was pleased to hear his voice. When they arrived at the hospital, James Rodriguez was waiting for them in the lobby. "Mr. Washington, welcome to St. Mary's Memorial Hospital. Mr. Harrison is looking forward to meeting with you." As they walked through the hospital, James provided a tour that was clearly designed to impress the Washington family. They saw the emergency room, where Robert would be responsible for maintaining life-saving equipment, the children's wing where young patients received world-class care, and the research laboratories where new treatments were being developed. "Mr. Washington," James said as they walked, "the maintenance position here isn't just about keeping the building clean. You would be responsible for ensuring that critical medical equipment functions properly, that the environment remains sterile and safe, and that our facility continues to provide the best possible care for our patients." Robert Washington listened intently, asking intelligent questions about electrical systems, HVAC maintenance, and equipment specifications. It was clear to everyone that he understood the technical requirements of the job. Meanwhile, Sofia and Marcus were getting acquainted. "Marcus, how old are you?" Sofia asked. "I'm 13, Marcus replied. "How old are you?" "I'm 12. What grade are you in?" "8th grade at Central Elementary." Sofia's eyes lit up. "That's where my grandmother is funding the new after-school program. Are you going to participate?" Marcus looked confused. What after-school program? Sofia realized that Marcus didn't know about the program his family's situation had inspired. "Oh, it's this new thing where kids can stay after school and get help with homework and have dinner and activities until their parents pick them up." "That sounds amazing," Marcus said wistfully. "I usually go home to an empty house after school because Grandpa is working and Grandma is at her medical appointments." "Well," Sofia said with a smile, "I think you're going to like what you hear about this program." While the children talked, Dorothy Washington was having her own conversation with Dr. Morrison, who had joined the group during the tour. "Mrs. Washington," Dr. Morrison said gently, "I understand you've been dealing with some health challenges of your own." Dorothy nodded. "Yes, ma'am, high blood pressure and diabetes. But with Robert working so much and Marcus needing attention, I haven't been keeping up with my medical care like I should. Would you be interested in establishing care here at St. Mary's? We have excellent specialists who can help you manage both conditions." "Dr. Morrison, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure we could afford." Dr. Morrison smiled. "Mrs. Washington, if your husband becomes an employee here, you and Marcus would be covered under our family health insurance plan. Comprehensive medical care would be part of his benefits package." Dorothy Washington's eyes filled with tears. "Doctor, are you saying that Marcus could see a pediatrician regularly, and I could get my blood pressure medication without choosing between pills and groceries?" "That's exactly what I'm saying." The interview with Michael Harrison went better than anyone had expected. Robert Washington's experience and knowledge impressed Michael, but it was his character and work ethic that sealed the deal. "Mr. Washington," Michael said near the end of the interview, "I have to ask you something directly. You're 67 years old. Many people your age are thinking about slowing down, maybe retiring. Why are you interested in taking on the responsibility of maintaining an entire hospital?" Robert Washington sat up straighter. "Mr. Harrison, I've been working since I was 14 years old. Work isn't just what I do, it's who I am. I take pride in doing things right, in solving problems, in being someone people can depend on." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "This hospital saves lives every day. If I can help keep the equipment running and the building safe, then I'm part of saving lives too. At my age, I don't need a job that makes me famous or makes me rich. I need a job that makes a difference." Michael Harrison smiled. "Mr. Washington, when can you start?" 6 months later, the transformation in the Washington family's life was remarkable. Robert Washington had become one of the most valued employees at St. Mary's Memorial Hospital. His attention to detail and proactive maintenance approach had prevented several potentially serious equipment failures. Dorothy Washington was healthier than she had been in years, thanks to proper medical care and the reduced stress of financial security. She had even started volunteering in the hospital's patient family support program. Marcus Washington was thriving in the after-school program at Central Elementary, where he received tutoring that had improved his grades significantly. He had also become friends with Sofia and several other children in the program, but perhaps the most significant change was in the way the entire hospital community had embraced the Washington family. On a Thursday afternoon, Conceição and Sofia were visiting the hospital for Sofia's regular checkup when they encountered a scene that perfectly illustrated how far things had come. In the emergency room waiting area, they saw Ashley, the former receptionist, who had been so rude during their first visit. But Ashley was no longer working at the reception desk. She had been promoted to patient advocacy coordinator, a position created specifically to ensure that all patients received respectful, compassionate treatment. Ashley was sitting with an elderly man who appeared to be homeless, helping him fill out paperwork for emergency medical care. She was speaking to him with patience and kindness, treating him with the same respect she would show to any patient. "Sir," Ashley was saying, "don't worry about the financial paperwork right now. Our priority is making sure you get the medical care you need. We have social workers who can help you with the insurance questions after the doctor has seen you." Sofia nudged her grandmother. "Grandma, look at Ashley. She's completely different from how she was when we first came here." Conceição smiled. "People can change, Sofia. Sometimes they just need the right example to follow." As they watched, Nurse Patricia Williams approached Ashley and the homeless man. "Ashley, Dr. Morrison is ready to see Mr. Johnson now. I'll take him back personally and make sure he's comfortable." Patricia treated the homeless man with the same professional care and personal attention she would give to any patient. It was clear that the lesson she had learned 6 months earlier had become a permanent part of who she was as a healthcare professional. After Sofia's checkup, they stopped by the maintenance office to visit Robert Washington. They found him training a new employee, a young man who had recently been hired as his assistant. "Mrs. Santos, Sofia," Robert said with genuine pleasure. "Perfect timing. I want you to meet David Martinez. He just started working here last week." David Martinez was a 23-year-old recent technical college graduate who had been struggling to find work in his field. "Mrs. Santos," David said respectfully, "Mr. Washington has been teaching me so much about hospital maintenance. I never realized how complex these systems are." Robert beamed with pride. "David is a quick learner, and he has excellent technical training. With his education and my experience, we make a good team." Conceição was pleased to see how naturally Robert had transitioned into a mentoring role. "David, how do you like working here?" "Ma'am, it's the best job I've ever had. Mr. Washington is teaching me not just about the technical aspects, but about taking pride in your work and understanding how what you do affects other people." Sofia spoke up. "Mr. Washington, how is Marcus doing in the after-school program?" Robert's face lit up even more. "Sofia, you wouldn't believe the change in that boy. His grades have improved so much that he's been accepted into the advanced math program for high school, and he's made so many friends through the program." "That's wonderful," Sofia said. "I've been helping with tutoring at the program too, and Marcus is one of the smartest kids there." As they prepared to leave, Dorothy Washington appeared in the maintenance office. She was coming off her shift as a volunteer in the patient family support program. "Conceição, Sofia," Dorothy said, embracing them both. "I'm so glad to see you." "Dorothy, you look wonderful," Conceição said. And it was true. Dorothy Washington looked healthier, happier, and more energetic than she had 6 months earlier. "I feel wonderful," Dorothy confirmed. "My blood pressure is under control, my diabetes is managed, and I'm doing work that makes me feel useful and valued." She paused, her eyes growing serious. "Conceição, I need you to know something. What you did for our family, it didn't just change our circumstances, it changed who we are. Robert has pride in his work again. Marcus has confidence in his future. And I have hope for the first time in years." Conceição felt tears forming in her eyes. "Dorothy, you don't need to thank me. Your family deserved every opportunity you received. All I did was make some phone calls." "No," Dorothy said firmly. "What you did was see us as people worth helping, not just problems to be solved. You gave us dignity along with opportunity." Sofia listened to this exchange with growing understanding of what her grandmother's work really meant. It wasn't just about money or even about solving immediate problems. It was about restoring people's sense of their own worth. That evening, as Conceição and Sofia sat in their library reviewing applications for the Santos Foundation Scholarship Program, Sofia made an observation that surprised her grandmother. "Grandma, I've been thinking about everything that's happened with the Washington family, and with Maria's family, and with all the other people you've helped." "What have you been thinking about?" Sofia set down the application she was reading. "I think I understand now why you dress simply and why you test how people treat others before you decide to help them." Conceição looked up with interest. "Tell me what you understand." "It's not just about finding people who need help," Sofia said thoughtfully. "It's about finding people who will use help to help other people." "What do you mean?" Sofia's eyes were bright with excitement as she explained her realization. "Look at what happened with Mr. Washington. You didn't just get him a job, you got him a job where he could train other people like David Martinez. And Mrs. Washington didn't just get health care, she started volunteering to help other families." Conceição smiled proudly. "Go on. And Ashley and Patricia didn't just learn to treat you better, they learned to treat everyone better. And Maria's family didn't just get help. Maria learned to help other kids like Tommy." Sofia paused, organizing her thoughts. "It's like, when you help the right people, they don't just use the help for themselves. They become helpers too." "That's exactly right, sweetheart. The best kind of help creates more helpers." Sofia was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Grandma, how do you always know which people will become helpers and which ones won't?" Conceição considered the question carefully. "Sofia, I don't always know for certain, but I've learned that people who are grateful for small kindnesses are usually the same people who will extend kindnesses to others when they're able. Like how Mr. Washington said good evening to you that night at the school, even though he was exhausted." "Exactly. And like how Maria immediately wanted to help Tommy when she saw him being bullied, even though she had been picked on herself." Sofia nodded. "And like how you always say please and thank you to everyone, even people who are supposed to be serving you." "That's right. Kindness isn't about having money or power, Sofia. It's about recognizing the humanity in every person you meet." Their conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. Conceição looked at the clock. It was 8:30 p.m., rather late for unexpected visitors. When they opened the door, they found Marcus Washington standing on their doorstep, holding a large envelope and looking nervous but determined. "Marcus!" Sofia exclaimed. "What are you doing here? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Marcus said quickly. "I'm sorry to bother you so late, Mrs. Santos, but I wanted to give you something before I lost my nerve." Conceição invited Marcus in, and they sat in the living room. Marcus clutched the envelope tightly, clearly working up the courage to speak. "Mrs. Santos," he began, 6 months ago, my grandfather was working 3 jobs, and my grandmother was sick, and I was failing math, and everything seemed hopeless." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Today, my grandfather loves his job and is training other people. My grandmother is healthy and helping families at the hospital. And I just found out that I've been accepted into the advanced placement program for high school." Conceição smiled. "Marcus, that's wonderful news. You should be very proud of yourself." "That's just it," Marcus said. "I am proud. But I also know that none of this would have happened without you. And I know that you help lots of people, not just my family." He held out the envelope. "I wanted to give you this." Conceição took the envelope and opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter and what appeared to be a check. "Marcus," she said, looking at the check in surprise, "this is for $500. Where did you get this money?" Marcus's face flushed with embarrassment and pride. "I've been working at the grocery store on weekends and after the tutoring program, and I've been saving every penny for 6 months." Sofia looked at the check with amazement. "Marcus, that's a lot of money for someone our age to save." I know it's not much compared to the millions of dollars you give away, Marcus said to Conceição, but I wanted to contribute to your foundation. I wanted to help you help other families like mine. Conceição felt tears forming in her eyes as she read Marcus's letter. Dear Mrs. Santos, 6 months ago, you helped my family when we had lost hope. You didn't just give us money or solve our problems for us. You gave us opportunities to solve our problems ourselves and to become the kind of people who can help others. I know that $500 is not very much money, but it represents every dollar I could save while still helping my family. I want you to use this money to help another family that needs opportunities the way we did. Someday, when I'm older and have a good job, I want to give much more. But for now, this is my way of saying thank you and of becoming part of the circle of helping that you taught us about. Respectfully, Marcus Washington P.S. I've also been tutoring younger kids in math at the after-school program. Sofia taught me that helping others is the best way to show gratitude for the help you've received. When Conceição finished reading the letter aloud, the room was silent for several moments. Finally, Sofia spoke up. Marcus, that's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. You saved for 6 months to give money to help other people. Marcus nodded shyly. It felt like the right thing to do. Mrs. Santos taught my family that when you receive help, you should look for ways to help others. Conceição stood up and walked over to Marcus. To his surprise, she handed the check back to him. Marcus, she said gently, I want you to keep this money. Marcus looked confused and hurt. Don't you want my help? Oh, sweetheart, I absolutely want your help, but I want you to use this money to start your own foundation. My own foundation? Marcus asked in disbelief. Yes. A foundation focused on helping kids who are struggling in school because their families are facing financial difficulties. You understand that situation better than anyone, and you'd know exactly how to help. Sofia jumped up excitedly. Marcus, that's perfect. You could help kids get tutoring and school supplies, and maybe even help their families find better jobs. Conceição nodded. And Marcus, when you help your first family, you can tell them about the circle of helping. You can teach them that the goal isn't just to receive help, but to become helpers themselves. Marcus stared at the check in his hands, then looked up at Conceição with wonder. Mrs. Santos, are you saying that I could really start my own foundation to help people? I'm saying that you already have started your own foundation. You saved money to help others. You're tutoring younger students, and you're thinking about how to expand your impact. All you need now is to make it official. Sofia was practically bouncing with excitement. Marcus, this is so cool. You'll be like a teenage philanthropist. Marcus looked at Sofia, then at Conceição. But I don't know how to run a foundation. I don't know about taxes and legal stuff and all that. Conceição smiled. Marcus, that's what mentors are for. I'll teach you everything you need to know about running a foundation effectively and responsibly. Really? You'd do that? Marcus, teaching young people how to help others is one of the most important things I can do with my time and knowledge. As Marcus prepared to leave, he turned back to Conceição with one more question. Mrs. Santos, when I start helping families, should I dress simply like you do? Should I test how people treat others before I decide to help them? Conceição considered the question carefully. Marcus, those techniques work for me because of my specific situation. But you need to develop your own approach based on your own experiences and personality. What do you mean? Well, you're a young person who has personally experienced the challenges that many families face. People might relate to you differently than they relate to me. You might be able to connect with struggling families in ways that I can't. Sofia nodded enthusiastically. Marcus, you could help kids our age who are embarrassed about their family situations. They might be more comfortable talking to you than to an adult. That's an excellent point, Sofia. Conceição agreed. Marcus, your age and your personal experience could be your greatest strengths as a philanthropist. Marcus smiled with growing confidence. I never thought about it that way. I could really help kids who are going through what I went through. Exactly. And Marcus, remember that the most important quality in a philanthropist isn't wealth. It's empathy. You have more empathy for struggling families than most wealthy adults ever will. 3 months later, the Marcus Washington Youth Foundation held its first official event, a back-to-school drive that provided school supplies, clothes, and tutoring services to 50 low-income families in the community. Conceição and Sofia attended the event, which was held in the gymnasium of Central Elementary School. They watched with pride as Marcus, now 14 and more confident than ever, coordinated volunteers and spoke with families about the services available to them. "Mom," they heard a young girl say to her mother, "that boy is only a little older than me, and he's helping all these families. How is that possible?" The mother smiled at her daughter. "Sweetheart, age doesn't determine someone's ability to make a difference. It's about caring and taking action." Sofia overheard this conversation and nudged her grandmother. "Grandma, look how Marcus is inspiring other kids." Indeed, several teenagers were volunteering at the event, and many seemed impressed by Marcus's leadership and passion for helping others. During the event, a local news reporter approached Conceição. "Mrs. Santos, I'm Jennifer Rodriguez from Channel 7 News. I understand that you've been mentoring young Marcus Washington in his philanthropic efforts." Conceição smiled politely. "Marcus is an exceptional young man who decided on his own to help other families. I've simply provided some guidance when he asked for it. Can you tell our viewers about the relationship between your foundation and Marcus's foundation?" The Santos Foundation and the Marcus Washington Youth Foundation operate independently, Conceição explained, but we share the same philosophy, that the best kind of help empowers people to help themselves and others. The reporter then turned to Marcus, who was helping a family register for tutoring services. "Marcus, can you tell us what inspired you to start your own foundation at such a young age?" Marcus thought for a moment before answering. "My family was struggling and Mrs. Santos helped us, but she didn't just give us money or solve our problems for us. She helped us find opportunities to improve our own situation." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "When I realized how much that kind of help had changed our lives, I wanted to provide the same kind of opportunities to other families. Especially families with kids my age who might be embarrassed about their situation or who don't know where to ask for help." The reporter seemed impressed. "What advice would you give to other young people who want to make a difference in their communities?" "You don't need to be rich or famous to help people," Marcus said confidently. "You just need to care and be willing to take action. Start small, but start." Sofia, who was helping to distribute school supplies, added her own perspective when the reporter approached her. "I think Marcus is showing everyone that helping people isn't just for adults. Kids can make a difference too." "And what have you learned from watching your grandmother and Marcus work together?" Sofia smiled thoughtfully. "I've learned that the best way to thank someone for helping you is to help someone else. It's like a chain reaction of kindness." Later that evening, as they drove home from the event, Sofia was unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke up. "Grandma, I've been thinking about something." "What's that, sweetheart?" "Marcus started his foundation because your help changed his family's life. And now he's helping other families, and some of those families will probably help even more families in the future." "That's right." Sofia was quiet for another moment. "How many people do you think will eventually be helped because you decided to help Marcus's grandfather?" Conceição considered the question. "Sofia, that's impossible to calculate, but I can tell you this. The impact of genuine kindness never really ends. It keeps spreading from person to person, generation to generation. Like ripples in a pond. Exactly like ripples in a pond. Sophia was quiet again, then asked, "Grandma, when I'm older, will you teach me to run the Santos Foundation?" Conceição felt her heart swell with pride and emotion. "Sophia, I would be honored to teach you everything I know about philanthropy and helping others. But I want to do it differently than you do." Conceição was surprised. "What do you mean?" "Well, you test people by dressing simply and seeing how they treat you. And that works really well for you. But I think I want to test people differently." "How?" Sophia smiled. "I want to test people by seeing how they treat kids. I think you can tell a lot about someone's character by watching how they interact with children." Conceição was amazed by her granddaughter's insight. "Sophia, that's a brilliant approach. Adults often reveal their true nature when they think children aren't important enough to impress." "Exactly, and I think kids often see things that adults miss. We notice when someone is being fake or when someone really cares." "So, you're thinking of involving other young people in evaluating potential recipients of foundation support?" Sophia nodded enthusiastically. "I think a team of kids and teenagers could be really good at identifying which adults and organizations genuinely care about helping people." Conceição smiled. "Sophia, I think you're going to be an even better philanthropist than I am." "Why do you think that?" "Because you're starting younger, learning from my experiences, but developing your own approaches. And you understand something that took me years to figure out." "What's that?" "That the most important thing about helping people isn't the money you give them. It's the dignity and hope you restore to them." 1 year after their first visit to St. Mary's Memorial Hospital, Conceição and Sofia returned for what had become an annual tradition, a celebration of the positive changes that had resulted from that difficult morning. The hospital lobby was decorated for the occasion, and many of the people whose lives had been touched by that day's events were present. Robert and Dorothy Washington were there, along with Marcus and several families who had been helped by his youth foundation. Ashley, the former receptionist who was now patient advocacy coordinator, had organized the event as a way to celebrate the hospital's commitment to treating all patients with dignity and respect. Dr. Morrison addressed the gathered crowd. "1 year ago, we learned an important lesson about the difference between treating symptoms and treating people. Mrs. Santos and Sofia came to our hospital seeking medical care and instead received a lesson in how assumptions and prejudices can harm both patients and healthcare providers." She paused, looking at Conceição and Sofia. "But what makes this story remarkable isn't just that we learned from our mistakes. It's what happened next, how one family's experience led to positive changes that have affected hundreds of other families." Michael Harrison, the hospital board chairman, spoke next. "The Santos Foundation's support has always been generous, but this year it became something more. It became transformational. Not just because of financial contributions, but because of the human connections and the culture of respect that developed from addressing our shortcomings." Ashley stepped forward to speak. "A year ago, I was a receptionist who made assumptions about people based on their appearance. Today, I'm in a position where I can ensure that every patient who comes through our doors is treated with the respect they deserve." She looked directly at Conceição and Sofia. "Mrs. Santos, Sofia, I want to thank you not just for your forgiveness, but for showing me that changing my behavior wasn't enough. I needed to change my heart." Patricia Williams, the nurse who had also learned important lessons that day, spoke about the hospital's new training programs. "We now require all staff members to complete regular training on cultural sensitivity, unconscious bias, and patient advocacy. But more importantly, we've created a culture where everyone, from doctors to custodians, understands that we're all part of ensuring that every patient feels valued and respected. Marcus Washington was invited to speak about his youth foundation. A year ago, my grandfather was working 3 jobs and my family was struggling. Today, because of Mrs. Santos's help and my grandfather's hard work, we're able to help other families facing similar challenges. He looked around the room at the young volunteers from his foundation. But the most important thing I've learned is that being helped isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. When someone helps you, you have a responsibility to help others. Finally, Sofia was asked to speak. She stood up nervously, but her voice was clear and confident. A year ago, I learned something that changed how I see the world. I learned that how you treat people says more about who you are than about who they are. She looked at her grandmother with love and admiration. My grandmother taught me that kindness isn't just about being nice to people. It's about seeing the potential in every person you meet and helping them see that potential in themselves. Sofia paused, looking around the room at all the faces, young and old, wealthy and modest, staff and patients and volunteers. Everyone in this room has been changed by what happened a year ago. Not just the people who received help, but the people who learned how to give help better. When Sofia sat down, Conceição stood to address the group. Thank you all for being here today. But I want you to understand something important. This celebration isn't really about me or Sofia, or even about the Santos Foundation. She gestured around the room. This celebration is about all of you. It's about Ashley's commitment to advocacy, Patricia's dedication to compassionate care, Robert's pride in meaningful work, Dorothy's service to other families, Marcus's leadership in helping his peers, and Dr. Morrison and Mr. Harrison's vision of healthcare that serves everyone. Conceição's voice became stronger as she continued, A year ago, Sofia asked me a simple question. Why are people being mean to us when we didn't do anything wrong? That question led to this moment, where we're surrounded by people who have committed themselves to ensuring that no one else has to ask that question. She smiled at her granddaughter. Sofia, you asked why people were being mean. Today, I can give you a better answer. People aren't inherently mean. They sometimes act thoughtlessly or make assumptions based on limited information, but when they're given the opportunity to see the impact of their behavior and to make positive changes, most people choose kindness. The celebration concluded with an announcement from Michael Harrison. The Santos Foundation and St. Mary's Memorial Hospital are partnering to create the Sofia Santos Institute for Compassionate Care, a training program that will help healthcare providers across the country learn how to treat all patients with dignity, respect, and genuine compassion. Sofia's eyes widened with surprise and emotion. Grandma, they're naming it after me? Conceição hugged her granddaughter tightly. Sofia, you're the one who asked the question that started all of this. Your curiosity, your kindness, and your wisdom have inspired everyone in this room to be better people. As they drove home that evening, Sofia reflected on everything that had happened over the past year. Grandma, do you think our story is finished now? Conceição smiled. Oh no, sweetheart, our story is just beginning. Marcus has his foundation. Ashley and Patricia are training other healthcare workers. The Sofia Santos Institute will help hospitals across the country, and you're learning how to be the next generation of philanthropists. So what happens next? Next, we continue to pay attention to the world around us. We continue to look for people who need opportunities and organizations that need support. We continue to test our assumptions and challenge other people's assumptions. Sofia nodded thoughtfully. And we continue to remember that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter how they look or how much money they have. That's right. And Sofia? Yes, Grandma? We continue to remember that sometimes the most important lessons come from the most difficult moments. Sofia squeezed her grandmother's hand. I love you, Grandma. Thank you for teaching me that kindness is the most important thing in the world. I love you too, sweetheart. And thank you for teaching me that the best questions often come from the youngest people. As they pulled into their driveway, Sofia had one final observation. Grandma, I think I understand now why you dress simply and live modestly, even though you're wealthy. Why's that? Sofia smiled with the wisdom of someone who had learned important lessons about human nature. Because the most beautiful things about people aren't the things you can see on the outside. And if you want to find those beautiful things, you have to give people the chance to show them to you. Conceição looked at her granddaughter with amazement and pride. Sofia Santos, you are going to change the world. We're going to change the world together, Grandma. That's what families do. And as they walked into their home, both grandmother and granddaughter knew that their most important adventures in kindness, generosity, and human connection were still ahead of them. What did you think of Conceição and Sofia's story? Their journey from humiliation to transformation shows us that how we treat others reveals who we truly are inside. Leave your thoughts in the comments and rate this story from 0 to 10. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to hear more incredible stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Which part of this story touched your heart the most? Let us know and check out more inspiring stories right here on the screen.